So thank you again for this opportunity to speak about clinical trials in small populations. Being from Armenia, which is a small country in Caucasus, for those who don't know, with only 3 million population, we think that this topic is very important. And I believe that there are a lot of people who might see the challenges and take the opportunities from where the challenges are. And by starting, we might want to define what is actually small population. We can approach this question from different parts. So the small population could be small nation, which has a small population of but different definition, less than 1 million, less than 10 million. So the actual number of people are small. It could be also by different targets. So when we want to study some disease which are very rare, our target population will also be very small because of those affected are small in numbers. And also it could be by geographically. So there are some areas which are logistically very difficult to reach. So they are usually underrepresented in clinical trials, and they will be very small in their numbers in the included already trials. And the other approach would be saying that resource restrictions, because a lot of countries, nations, centers will have limitations in their resources. So they will also be very small and not inclusive in the clinical trials. While today we speak about colorectal cancer, which is a common cancer and not a rare, and one might think that it's not very difficult to find a population to be included in the trials, but it's not only like this, it's just the one side of the story. And here I have the graph from colorectal cancer burden, which is going to be even more in upcoming years. And while we think that the big nations are the one who are going to face this burden, every nation is going to face these numbers, and everyone with their own small part. So bringing the clinical trials and novel research, we give opportunities to everyone. And at the end, our goal is to make this novel research accessible to everyone. So even the small nation and small population will need to somehow access this novel research, which is going on. And speaking again about common cancers and colon, we have here a very small example. Colorectal cancer, of course, is common, is the third most common cancer worldwide. But when we want to do a trial in very specific disease subtypes, is it still very common? And we learn more and more about genetic profile, about people, about epigenetics, about genomics, and any other factors, and see more and more distinct subtypes. If we have the example of 100 colorectal cancer patients and we want to do the specific research in KRAS G12C mutated cancers, if we have 100, which is a very big number, we want to do in KRAS. So we identify those. It will be only 40% left because the prevalence will be only 40%. And from these 40 people, only 64% will have G12. So it's around 36 people left. And if we want to do in this specific G12C subtype, which is around 10%, we will have only 3 or 4 people left. So at the end, this with 100 people at the first we thought that could be included in the trial, only 4 left eligible for this trial. So even with the common cancers, we face rarity, and we need to identify how we can overcome these challenges. And here I have another example of EGFR in lung cancer. And you might think that, okay, big centers do the trials, they randomize, they collaborate with each other, they recruit, and other people can only extract the results and use in their settings. It's not always the true story, because some patients and populations have their distinct profile and molecular definition, which we saw when we discovered the EGFR. At first, in lung cancer, immunotherapy was something that actually changed a lot, and it reshaped the treatment, the same as it is doing these colorectal tumors with MSI high specifically. But the problem was to identify those patients. At first, when they were not testing for everything, we didn't know that different nations have different molecular prevalence, and some genetic subtypes were more prevalent in some nations. So it seemed that in the treatment, which was working very well in some countries, which was not working that well in other countries. That's why they started to test it more and more, and found that actually EGFR was more and more prevalent in Asian population, which made it less responsive to immunotherapy. This is something that we have already tested and we know, but there are other molecular definitions which we still don't know. And as the time goes, we are going to exploit more and more. And that's why it has a role to do the own, even small trials in this specific population, because their unique genetic profile will contribute to how people will respond to the disease and how will we get the most effect of the treatment. And if we come to the challenges for small nations, the small nation decided to do a clinical trial to understand whether this treatment works for them or not. What are the main problems? Of course, it's numbers. The recruitment will be slow, and also it will be very difficult to find the people eligible, just because the number of people is less, number of cancer patient is less. But not only this, also there should be an infrastructure knowledge gap, because they do not usually do big clinical trials. So the research nurses, coordinators, or even the enrollment and the doctors who are going to refer them will not know what to do and how to refer these patients to the specific parts which can have clinical trials. And when you not do a lot of clinical trials, your government and regulatory is not also ready for taking these challenges, and needs to some adaptation also in regulatory framework. But if we do not act now, they're always going to be excluded in the trials and not going to benefit from the research which is going on worldwide. And from WHO, we could see that most of the trials are conducted in United States, China, Japan, and other income countries. And here there is another thing. It's not only about numbers, it's also about collaboration, region, logistics, and income. If we see the high-income countries have most of the trials, even despite the number of people living in this specific country. And we might think that this is another reason which we should focus. And if we go down here, we might see that European countries, which might not have as big population as other Asian or African or Latin American countries, they still have more clinical trials accessible. This is because usually of collaboration, which builds us to think that small nation can have their contribution by collaborating together. And one would be a huge and make the difference numbers. So if we do a randomized controlled trials, if we want to do, there always would be problems, but there are always ways to overcome that. And the first way would be trial designs. So the usual conventional randomized controlled trials does not work in this population, not always, or it should be a big nationwide, and not only nationwide, but regional and international clinical trials. And we can be part of these big organizations and trials and playing our part, which is another way of the collaboration, and it could make the difference. This could be another option to overcome it. Another one could be making the follow-up time longer. So we will have more time to recruit the same number of patients, which will be needed for reaching the target significant level, and broaden our inclusion criteria, so more people can be included in the same trial and not the very strict ones. And of course, trial designs, novel trial designs, which allow interim analysis and switching the treatment arms or dropping one might help to not have the whole trial ongoing, but in the one step, understanding whichever arm works better. It could be allocated to this, and novel master protocols and adaptive style designs will address this and help to overcome the challenges. And for some cases, single-arm studies will also be accepted, especially if it is something that is already done in the world, but we would like to know how it will work in the same population. It could be used with historical controls, or could be used synthetic arm designs, and could be another way of overcoming the limited number of patients. And another thing will be, of course, limiting our overall goal is reducing sample size. We would like to maintain the power because this is why we do our trials. We would like to ensure that whatever we give is the best. We might want to do trials in the treatments which we will see more difference in whatever is standard now. So we will need less people. And we might play a little bit in the type 1 error parts with proper statistician help. Novel methods actually tackle this, and the Bayesian statistical model is something that is used to address this problem in small populations. And this is especially relevant for pediatric population too, because they are also not a lot of numbers, and it's not like breast cancer or colorectal cancer, which have the huge number of patients. Bayesian method helps. What actually it does, we are giving the prior knowledge, and by having this prior knowledge, we are building the new knowledge, so we can adjust with this even small sample size. We can adjust the results and get the most important and most significant result, and still maintaining the power with lower number needed. And we can play with endpoints. So using surrogates instead of the surrogate endpoints, like for overall survival, we can use progression-free survival. So we use it very more in short period. And also using continuous variable versus binary variable will help us to get less sample size and be able to do more research in the small population in nations. And of course, composite endpoints, which will include different endpoints one together, whichever has the clinical relevance. Everything should be not compromised from the quality. With the proper statistician help, we could find a way to lower the sample size, but this will always should be driven from the benefit of the patients and have the clinical significance and the research significance maintained. And how can small populations contribute to worldwide? It's not only doing their own trials, but also being part of the bigger trials which are done in other big nations, and also making their own registries. And the same example as people were doing from the rare diseases. They made consortiums, they made joint actions, they made registries to be together. So every small number or every small case will be included in the same place, and they can share both the expertise and also this research environment and get the benefit of each other, which will help to build the infrastructure in every place. So more people will be able to be included in different trials, and it will help also with logistically. So people will not need to travel to big centers to get their best treatment. It will lower the burden of the big center and also contribute to the small center. So it will be mutually beneficial, and collaboration is key. Another is the reference network. ERTC is trying a lot to make the trials inclusive, so it is not always conducted in the same centers, not always with the same populations, but more diverse, and to ensure that whatever they got with the results will be able to be generalizable for broader audience and for broader patient populations. And building their own biobanks and registries, like small countries, so they will have identified pool of genetic markers, and they will know that whatever trial will be accessible or acceptable to them. Another important point would be, of course, funding and support from government and regulation. European Commission has a specific part where they address the problems with rare diseases and with the small nations to do the research, and has the consensus paper with the recommendations on how to do and what to sacrifice and what to not. How the government can help? It can help with funding the small centers to build the infrastructure to be able to be part of the bigger multinational trials, and also to allow for surrogate endpoints to be enough for the approval and ease the work of this regulatory process. And the future will be decentralization. So the trials are not always in the big centers, but also in the different centers. And small centers can also be part of these big ones. Even if they will not recruit the same number of patients, they should have equal chance to be involved. They should be able to involve different populations with different genetic background. And novel trial designs will help to lower the number of the control using the synthetic controls or historical controls. And of course, we should advocate and work with the regulatory networks so the trials will be more inclusive. And I would conduct with this one that even the atom is very small. Our universe is made of these small, small atoms, and every small thing matters. Thank you.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to OncoDaily on YouTube. Hit the bell icon to stay updated.